In the harsh world of hip-hop, where reputations are based on power and destroyed by a single post, Curtis 50 Cent Jackson has just elevated the game of trolling to a corporate takeover. This isn't just another lyrical dispute or social media fight. It's a high-stakes real estate conflict that has shook the whole industry. In the headlines, 50 Cent is the only name that sticks out. How about the victim? Jim Jones, a Harlem inhabitant. The chaos started when 50 Cent shared a breathtaking surveillance video that left fans speechless. In the video, Jim Jones is seen, visibly furious, kicking the door of his own studio in an attempt to enter. But the reason is disturbing, and the doors are still closed. 50 Cent is alleged to have bought the building and insulted Jim. "My partner is Sam. This is now mine." Jim Jones, Minot, and Fabulous received a clear message from 50's cold, cunning captions, which referred to them as squatters on his property. 50 Cent is not only claiming victory, he is claiming possession. He revealed details concerning unpaid rent, missing leases, and a legal issue that seems to have deprived Jim Jones of his creative sanctuary. The internet is booming. Did 50 Cent really buy his competitor's company to get rid of him? The warning was obvious. You're going to pay for every dent in that door because I own it. Or is this the most advanced psychological conflict we have ever seen? As the video gains popularity, the plot shifts from music to complete control. Jim Jones, a veteran who finds immense joy in his street cred, finds himself in a dire circumstance where his landlord might be his worst enemy. This explains how the facts, the films he uploaded, and the I own warning that fundamentally changed the trajectory of their conflict were leaked by 50 Cent. Hold on tight. The goal of his 450s chess moves is to financially and emotionally ruin his opponents. The definition of savagery has just been redefined by Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. This isn't your typical music battle on social media, and it's absolutely not just about rhythmic insults or lyrical subdene. Jackson has just redefined what it means to be savage in the brutal and unforgiving world of the contemporary hip-hop industry, where reputations are based on power and destroyed by a single viral moment. This high-stakes multi-million-dollar corporate takeover has the entire music industry in utter shock and amazement. The headlines are screaming, the blogosphere are on fire, and at the center of it all is 50 Cent's undoubtedly alarming message to Jim Jones. "This belongs to me." The hubbub started when 50 Cent shared a shocking piece of surveillance footage that looked more like a scene from a terrible crime book than a famous social media update. In the video, Harlem veteran Jim Jones is seen to be clearly upset and irritated. Through the blurry lens of a security camera, he can be seen desperately kicking down the doors of his own studio in an attempt to break into the building where he has spent years building his reputation and recording his popular "Let's Rap About It" podcast. But the interior lights were completely off. The cause of this lockout is unsettling, and the locks stayed in place. In addition to insulting Jim Jones from a distance with a clever alliance with the original landlord and a sly smirk, 50 Cent allegedly used a clever legal maneuver to purchase the building outright from him, turning a professional haven into a trap. 50 Cent has effectively assumed control of his main competitor's workplace. He continued after that. He summoned Fabulous squatters and Jim Jones Minot too. He recently bought private property and sent out a dire warning to the public. It was a loud, clear, and intensely personal statement. "You will have to pay for each dent you make in that door on Monday." On this one, opinions on the internet are divided. Some people think that Jim Jones' commercial empire has been shattered by 50 Cent overnight with overwhelming financial might. To understand the extent of this shift, one needs look at the previous confrontations between these two icons, even though others wonder if this is his most intricate and clever psychological warfare strategy. For years, the leader of Gun It and the Diplomat's frontman have been at conflict, but 50 Cent has consistently preferred the courts and the boardroom. But most rappers settle their conflicts in a recording studio. He's not just interested in winning a debate, he wants to possess the exact ground his opponents stand on. 50 Cent has gained influence over his rivals, in addition to developing a framework, daily operations by acquiring this specific piece of Bronx property. He has turned their place of employment into a surveillance center with cameras under his control, keeping an eye on everything for anyone who could be interested in playing games with the billionaire. 50 Cent's video footage functions as a sobering reminder. For example, let's take a look at this, which we all know, as everyone is aware. "I have been investigating that we are my puries with Karas. With Karas that we now control, the monitor can read and spend candy of Conra with confirming, I willy with Consing if they read. If they do, we are at Kwesi Riwad, by you, at Kimu, with the uncoggle eye, and so on. We like Iwa to need a king. And with that, we take." It showcases a little-known facet of the company. The hard, uncompromising truth of lawful ownership and property rights, a set of newly cut hair, and a formal notice of eviction were too much for Jim Jones, who prides himself on his street cred and his lengthy background in New York. as an experienced musician trying to take back a place that no longer belongs to him. The picture of his act of kicking the door is a powerful allegory for his current situation. They made fun of the former resident's lack of documentation and accountability. According to 50 Cent's insightful analysis of the video, if a man's voice cannot be silenced, his microphone should be taken away. The greatest chess move, according to, is this one. If you are unable to remove him from his spot, his microphone for music. That's precisely what 50 Cent did. He has effectively closed off a major platform for his rivals without firing a single shot or dropping a single diss track. The psychological repercussions of knowing that your landlord is your worst enemy can cause anyone to lose focus. Consider trying to capture a song or podcast while knowing that the person who owns the walls around you is actively trying to destroy you and documenting all of your mistakes for millions of followers to see. There are serious repercussions from this warning. More significant than the structure itself is the message it sends to the whole entertainment industry. 50 Cent is demonstrating that he has accumulated sufficient wealth and influence to openly interfere in other people's affairs with the addition of a partner named Sam, whom he refers to as the real deal. He is now functioning under the rules of business acquisition and real estate rather than the music industry. 50 is proving that he has the backing and legal expertise necessary to carry out these plans. Jim Jones and his band are essentially being told that their days of living for nothing or following their own rules are coming to an end, are no longer accessible, with millions of people seeing the video of Jim's desperation. The story has evolved from a simple dispute to one of total financial power. The crew of Let's Rap About It might lose their tools, their archive, and their safety. So, it's not simply a studio problem, a legal clock is running out, and 50 Cent's warning about the Monday deadline suggests that if the demands are not met, there might be more severe consequences than just a lockout. He has made references to everything from property damage lawsuits to the permanent seizure of any valuables still inside the building. The way hip-hop feuds are handled is evolving, and fans are witnessing this firsthand. We are seeing a move that changed the trajectory of events break down. A technique that highlights the bag rather than the bars. 50 Cent has drawn attention to the financial shortcomings of his colleagues. His statements betray a lack of true ownership. Among those who communicate the ion warning, at its loudest, is a triumphant scream for a battle that is being fought in the background of bank transfers in real estate offices. A battle that most people are not aware is taking place. This introduction lays the groundwork for a far more in-depth analysis of the financial trap that has been created. It raises questions about how Jim Jones got into this situation and his future goals. Does he stand up for himself in court? Will there be a new home for his show? Or will he be forced to haggle with a man who clearly doesn't want to simplify his life? Jim Jones has been deftly backed into a predicament where his choices are few and his actions are publicly visible. For individuals who are at fault, the act side teaches a terrible lesson about the landlord rapper, period. As we dig deeper into the specifics of the financial crisis, it becomes clear that this is only the beginning. The history of the lease and the reaction of the streets of New York. There are promises of further films, updates, and evidence that 50 Cent has total control over the problem. He is enjoying every second of this takeover, proving once again that he is always one step ahead of his rivals in both life and the industry. The statement, "I own warning," is more than just a catchphrase for Jim Jones. The foundation of his career is starting to be undermined by the weight of this new reality. A horrible new chapter in hip-hop history, with rivalries have started to progress from a verbal dispute to a full-fledged seizure of actual property. Instead of just happening onto this chance, 50 Cent pursued with the precision of a corporate shark. He realized that the infrastructure of any contemporary artist is their greatest vulnerability. Behind the scenes, while Jim Jones was busy taping episodes and giving presentations, 50 Cent was auditing the exact property he was standing on, an image of the nobles of Harlem. He discovered a notable difference between the studio and Jim's on-screen opulence: the actual legal status of Lisa. The first 50 needed to start a strike that would do more damage than any diss track could. He avoided social media and went straight to the source: the building's legitimate ownership. Clamor 50 Cent formed a strategic partnership with the original landlord, which effectively changed the rules of the game overnight. A man named Sam. He went from being a landlord to a gatekeeper. When he uploaded that CCTV footage of Jim Jones kicking the door, he wasn't just showing a man in a rage. He was displaying a man who had been evicted from his own workplace by force. They had switched off the electricity, the security codes had been cleared, and the locks had been changed. For Jim Jones, it was a physical and psychic prison. Using his own caution, Jim Jones's career in that field was undoubtedly ended. According to 50 Cent, the power transfer happened so fast that Jim and his crew including Menno and Fabulous, were left scrambling to determine their legal standing in a facility that no longer recognized them. This action is meant to progressively ruin Jim's reputation and has disastrous financial repercussions. According to 50 Cent, the studio is heavily indebted, with roughly $250,000 in past due rent. 50 Cent assumed ownership of the business and is now liable for the debt. He is no longer just a rival rapper. He is now Jim Jones' primary creditor. In terms of, Jim is in a vulnerable position. Theoretically, each time he tries to record information or continue his business, he is spending 50 cents. The warning about the Monday deadline was a well-thought-out threat. In essence, if the bill wasn't settled or the item wasn't removed by that date, 50 Cent threatened to begin a full legal seizure of everything inside the building. This includes the expensive recording gear, the cameras, the furnishings, and above all, the podcasts. Digital archives. What's so awful about this maneuver is that 50 Cent is using the legal system as a means of humiliation. In the video he uploaded, he pointed out that Jim was kicking the door and causing damage to the property. The statute states that this gives 50 Cent more power to ask for damages and restraining orders. 50 is tempting Jim to act out of character, since he knows that every outburst is being recorded by the cameras that he now owns. He is effectively making a reality show about his enemy's demise, using the enemy's own studio as the set, that any commercial operation can be stopped in its tracks by the psychological pressure of knowing that your rival is watching everything you do. Jim Jones is currently fighting not just for his reputation, but also for his ability to access his place of employment. The reaction of that industry has been a mix of surprise and fear, concerned that 50 Cent would find a gap in their own life. Other artists are looking at their own contracts and business arrangements. At his finest, this is petty, but the wealth that underpins it makes the pettiness of dangerous. He's proving that he can mess with other men's life without ever going into a recording booth. He undermines Jim and his group's rights when he refers to them as squatters. Honor. In hip-hop culture, being a squatter is the opposite of being a boss in terms of music. It implies that you are subsisting on the kindness or dishonesty of others. 50 Cent's portrayal of a man who is barely able to make ends meet is displacing Jim Jones' decades-long cultivation of the boss persona. As the deadline approaches, 50 Cent has continued to tighten the rope, hinting that he plans to turn the Let's Rap About It studio into a Gannett Media Center. He mentioned that he is already conducting interviews with potential new hires to fill the space. The ultimate insult would be to place the 50 Cent emblem on the walls where Jim Jones once held court. The ion warning refers to accepting responsibility for the narrative as well as the actual setting. 50 Cent is controlling the information flow by releasing financial records and security footage that shows a failing business. Even if Jim Jones is successful in finding a new studio, his commercial reputation might be permanently damaged. Why would anyone want to work with an artist who might be expelled by his rival? In response, Jim Jones has done his best to maintain composure. In an effort to look stronger, he has posted videos of himself exercising, but it's clear that his usual studio environment is absent. The fact that 50 Cent is a king without a throne is being made clear to everyone. 50 Cent has declared that he will not tolerate anything, thus the risk of legal action is very serious, even if it is less than a full exit or compensation. He even ridiculed the idea of friendship, asking Jim whether he wanted to be buddies because the balance of power had shifted so drastically. It acted as a humorous reminder to everyone that in 50 Cent's universe, friends are not the same as acquaintances and enemies. The warnings countdown to Monday has gone viral. Both fans and detractors are monitoring their feeds in expectation of 50 Cent uploading a video showing the locks being permanently welded shut or the equipment being carried out into the street. 50 Cent has deftly turned a private business dispute into a public show of dominance. He's using his massive social media following to ensure Jim Jones is unable to avoid the embarrassment. One of the best in Harlem is looking for an exit strategy that doesn't exist as a result of this recorded legal and financial attack. Jim finds it more harder to dismiss this as online. Rumors now that 50 has a witness and a partner who can verify the claims of poor management. As we examine the ramifications in more detail, the focus shifts to the collateral damage. How do the other musicians who are associated with Jim fare? What happens to previously unreleased recorded content? 50 Cent claims that whatever that is left in the building beyond the deadline is his. This may indicate that 50 Cent is the real owner of his rival's unreleased footage and interviews. This level of ownership almost amounts to absolute power. The ion warning is a great example of winning a war without ever using a weapon. The most powerful weapon you can have in 2026 is the deed to your enemy's house. Jim Jones' professional life was deliberately stifled by his locks, as well as the financial and digital records of his employment. As 50 Cent has shown, it turned become the fact that this was about a full asset seizure rather than simply a room with microphones became evident as the sun started to set. On the weekend before 50 Cent's infamous Monday deadline, on behalf of the new ownership group, 50 Cent's legal team began the process of claiming ownership rights over everything that was contained behind those four walls. In the world of commercial leases and high-end real estate, the landlord usually has a legal claim on the remaining property after a tenant is evicted for non-payment. This implied that the cameras, the expensive soundboards, and maybe the hard disks with months' worth of unpublished material were now under the possession of the Janot billionaire. Let's talk about it in our wrap. Episodes 2. The psychological conflict intensified as 50 Cent began to hint at the new acquisition's market value. He was talking about the intellectual property, not the rent. He threatened to either sell the equipment or, worse, release the uncut film of Jim Jones's backstage antics if the bill wasn't paid. This is the worst nightmare that any well-known person might have. Any creative would prefer not to have their intimate conversations, arguments, or technical issues observed by the general public. Because he owned the studio, 50 Cent essentially owned the portions of Jim Jones' life that were cut out. The tone of the ion warning became much more ominous as the public started to understand that 50 Cent was now the steward of his enemy's legacy. This decision's consequences were creating a stir in the streets in the Bronx's Harlem. 50 Cent effectively treated Jim Jones like a tourist in his own city. Every time Jim posted a video, 50 Cent would reply with financial documents or a new video of the abandoned studio. In an effort to avoid the problem, 50 Cent started mocking Jim's way of life on Instagram and comparing it to the actual eviction notice. The ridiculousness of allegedly not being able to support as a business was brought to light by 50 Cent. Locations' monthly costs while wearing jewelry valued at thousands of dollars. A court of law employs this specific line of attack to his advantage, attacking the facade, knowing that bank statements are more important than gold chains. Sam, the character's facade in this drama, proved to be a crucial element. 50 Cent is safeguarded. He had a real business partner who had been the landlord before, which protected him from accusations of personal harassment. Jim Jones's legal options for a counterattack were limited, because he could simply argue that he was defending an investment and conducting business. If he sued 50 Cent, he would be suing his own landlord, which would speed up the discovery process and make Jim's financial information public. 50 Cent was conscious of this, understanding that Jim's company's reputation would be severely damaged by the discovery phase. In effect, he was pursuing legal action on behalf of the Harlem rapper. There was no way out of the financial maze. It was a trap inside. As Monday morning approached, the tension reached a breaking point. The contrast between 50 Cent's music and real-life business tactics became even more pronounced. More vague, when he started using music from his Power universe to create countdowns on his posts. His new alias was the landlord, and he even made a suggestion that he would utilize the studio to train his own media personnel. The message was clear. There was no room for haggling. Instead of being seen as a threat that needed to be removed, Jim Jones was legend or a coworker. 50 Cent even went so far as to advise Jim on his career, advising him to live within his means and even go back to a smaller flat. The consequences of the aftermath also started to affect the podcasts. Sponsors and guests. No business wants to be associated with a studio that is currently the target of an aggressive takeover and legal eviction. The following weeks, scheduled visitors reportedly canceled because they feared being caught in a brawl or, worse, having their interviews taken away by 50 Cent, in addition to blocking Jim's ability to record by taking over the studio. 50 Cent also tainted the well. For any outside partners, he made the "let's rap about it" brand toxic. This is what a power move actually means. In addition to taking something, it also entails damaging something. Conversely, Jim Jones attempted to show that his movement was more than just a structure. He started filming in a variety of locations while trying to portray a business-like atmosphere. But there were the altered production quality, defensive attitude, and barrage of comments asking, "Where's the studio, Jim? And did you pay 50 yet?" All demonstrated how 50 Cent had successfully turned Jim's own fan base into a collection of debt collectors. The only thing that the audience wanted to hear was the rent whenever Jim spoke. By essentially assuming Jim Jones' entire public persona, 50 Cent made sure that the conversation would always come back to 50, feel ownership, notwithstanding Jim's behavior. At the same time, my cautionary story song became a warning, a meme, and a slogan. It served as a reminder that the person in charge of the infrastructure controls culture in the modern world, including music. 50 Cent was not only winning a feud but also demonstrating a new form of warfare where the pen and the deed are more potent than the microphone or the sword. He was proving to the next generation of rappers that a single wire transfer can be used to steal everything if they don't own their houses, businesses, or masters. A Memorial 250 was built in the Bronx studio, sends a graveyard for the conventional hip-hop business paradigm and brutal efficiency. 50. As the last-minute deadline approached, I sent out another video. Instead of a surveillance footage this time, it was a high-definition tour of the abandoned studio. He strode through the corridors like a conqueror, pointing to the equipment and making jokes about how clean the facility looked now that the squatters were gone. He stared directly into the camera and said, "Monday is here. Hope you got your boxers ready." His tone was unnervingly definite. No longer was it a joke. The transition was complete. The empire of Curtis Jackson is always expanding. Now included was the studio that had formerly been part of Harlem's ambitions. This set the stage for the pivotal moment, the meeting point of street life and the legislation. The entire world was waiting to see if Jim Jones would make one last stand or retreat quietly into the New York night. 50 Cent saw the destruction of his rival's business as just another productive weekend, and had already turned his attention to his next objective. The Ion period had officially begun, with the blood of a broken lease and the cold ink of a new deed, rewriting the terms of participation in the world of celebrity feuds. The final phase of this drama was transformed from an ownership battle to a protracted demonstration of total control. As the Monday deadline approached, the Bronx studio began to feel more like a tactical occupation than a business move. 50 Cent delivered a final update to the world as promised, thereby closing a chapter in the history of Jim Jones and his gang. He began a public audit of the harm he said was, besides just shutting the doors, left behind. The ION warning had been replaced by the UO invoice. With a deliberate word choice, 50 Cent implied that the previous inhabitants were a pestilence that had been successfully removed from the property when he showed a team of professionals entering the building to begin what he called fumigation and restoration in his most recent video. Everybody on the losing team is permanently scarred. On their standing in the workplace, Jim Jones interpreted the studio's closure as a concrete indication of a more significant issue as a result of this takeover. In the competitive world of New York business, where you are is who you are. After his most vocal opponent expelled him, Jim felt obliged to defend himself all the time. Every interview since that Monday has been dominated by questions about his ability to create his own base of operations and his financial stability. He's finished. 50 Cent made sure that